Welcome everyone to the Bhakti Talk podcast, where we discuss the spiritual path through the wisdom ways, practices, and teachings of our beloved Guru, spiritual teacher, Swami Premodaya. We are your hosts, Swami Sky and Ananda Dev. The Bhakti Talk podcast is presented to you by the International Centers of Divine Awakening. You can watch episodes on YouTube or listen on any of the major podcasting sites, and you can also give us a follow on all social media platforms at Bhakti Talk Podcast. New episodes come out twice a month, so be sure to subscribe to be notified. Today's episode, our second episode. If you haven't listened to it before, we have the first one. You can still listen to it. But in today's episode, we will discuss who is Swami Premodaya and what is Bhakti. So let's start, Swami Sky, with who is Swami Premodaya?
Well, I am a disciple of Swami Premodaya, so Swami Premodaya is my beloved guru.
And my beloved Guru as well.
Yeah, we are, in fact, Guru brothers, Guru Bhai. So, in that sense, we are part of the same spiritual community, same spiritual family, also known as a Sangha. And I don't know how people travel the spiritual path without fellow travelers. We all need, one of Swami Premodaya's beautiful teachings is that we all need massive help, and we all need massive help every day. So Sangha is your spiritual community, is your spiritual family, is your reflection, your support. So beloved brother, I'm so pleased and privileged and grateful to have this Bhakti Talk podcast with you, and for any disciple talking about their spiritual path and talking about their beloved teacher, their beloved guru is their favorite thing to talk about. So
that is our joy and our selfish reason to do Bhakti Talk podcast. And also, without Swami Premodaya, no Bhakti Talk podcast.
That's absolutely true. We are presented by the International Centers of Divine Awakening, which was founded by Swamiji in 2004. And I just want to remind people who might be listening for the first time or the second time, Swamiji, Guruji, Gurudev, my guru, it all means the same thing. We're referring to Swami Premodaya. And if you follow the traditions, all is one. We're really referring to any guru, and all gurus are one guru. But Ananda Dev and I in particular are referring to our beloved Swami Premodaya. So who is Swami Premodaya? Well, Swami Premodaya is my guru. And we could stop there and say end of episode. But that wouldn't give people nearly enough, and it would rob us of the opportunity of actually expressing our joys and the privilege of being a disciple of a spiritual teacher. So maybe I'll start with you. Who is Swami Premodaya, Ananda Dev?
It's maybe good for people who don't know Swami Premodaya to go a bit back in time. Swami Premodaya started as a therapist. On the website, you can find a lot of info of the history of Swami Premodaya and how he actually got here. And actually, Swami Sky, you were one of the people who attended the very, very first event Swami Premodaya did as a spiritual teacher when he just had gotten, I think it was 6 months before, he had gotten the command to make himself available to people spiritually. He didn't really know what it meant, but he took it seriously and he said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. We set all the wheels in motion. And being a businessman and having a lot of experience in business, he knew he needed at least 6 months to put out ads, make sure that everything was in place, an actual space, a title,
website,
photographs.
Like, just so happens to be the photograph just behind you there was the first photograph that was used taken and used by Swami Premodaya for the first ever magazine ad. I actually have that ad. I'll have to show it to you. I cut it out and I kept it. So October 2nd, 2004 was the first event that Swami Premodaya put on as a spiritual workshop, as a spiritual teacher in response to that call.
And this photo actually is also the photo I first saw of my beloved Swami Premodaya, with underneath the title actually of the first workshop. I didn't go to the first workshop, but it was the same title as we discussed in our previous episode, Everyone Knows Everything. But please go ahead. You were there.
Yeah, so I was part of. So I was in attendance at that first all-day workshop, the first event that Swami Premodaya ever put on as a spiritual teacher. But I think we should go even a little further back. So like you mentioned, Swami Premodaya has had 30, 40 years of working with people in psychology, but more than that, he is a spiritual practitioner. If I had to say who is Swami Premodaya, I would say he's a spiritual practitioner. He's been a very serious practitioner of a spiritual path with his beloved guru Osho um, for 40 years now. And so when somebody says who's Swami Premodaya, the first thing that I'm aware of is that he's a practitioner on the spiritual path, and his practice is so serious that he just completely fell in love with the guru. And we'll get more into that later because, if I had to describe Swami Premodaya, I'd use the term that he has stated, which is he's a devotee. He's a devotee of Osho. And some people, different traditions use different terms in different ways. Some people mean, when they say devotee, they mean disciple. Like some people are devotees of Adida, or any of the gurus. And what Swami Premodaya refers to is there are spiritual seekers, or people who come as students, and then there are formally initiated disciples, and then a disciple all the way to the end of discipleship becomes a devotee, completely lost in love, completely lost and completely taken over. I don't want to say lost because it's very positive. Completely taken over by the divine. Completely, their love and practice of devotion has so taken over their life that they live in the master. They live in the divine.
Yeah, I heard Swamiji call a devotee also a fully cooked disciple.
I like that one. Yeah, so that's somebody who's in a completely doubt-free position, who is God-centered and living their spiritual path completely. So that would be Swami Premodaya to me. So before he's ever a spiritual teacher, and in fact, I've never heard Swamiji make any claims or any. It's usually us disciples who uh, tell the guru everything we tend to see. We tend to project it out there, good or bad. But the only thing I've heard Swami Premodaya say are two things, which is that I am a devotee of Osho. I know who my master is. I'm a devotee of Osho, and that he's God-centered. That's truly his what he has said about himself, and I can say that. So what I want to share is how Swami Premodaya got the call to make himself available to people spiritually. So he got a call to become a spiritual teacher. He calls it. He states it's a command. He got a very clear. I said call, but he got a very clear command, and I want to use his words because he has made so clear. And if you know Swami Premodaya at all, you know that he is never. He's just not the type to want to be a spiritual teacher. He has said very clearly. The last thing I ever considered, the last thing I would ever think about is being a spiritual teacher or starting a spiritual center. And so when he got the command, the command to make himself available to people spiritually, he's like, as he describes, he's like, me? I'm not so sure about that. But he kept getting confirmation. The story he tells is that people often came up to him on the street and said, I don't know why, but I really feel like you can help me. And what he really noticed is that in working with people in psychology, that the work had changed, and that it was no longer therapy. It was way more advanced. It became very clear that he was working with people spiritually. So he agreed to start the spiritual center. And what he came to find out later is the fact that he never wanted to be a spiritual teacher, would never want to be a spiritual teacher, never had any interest in a spiritual center. And those are the very qualifications that made him right to be a guru, because there's no ego in it. If you have the desire to be a guru, if you want to be a guru, from my position, first, you don't understand what a guru is, because it's an incredible responsibility. But second, it's too much ego. So that disqualifies you from the call of the tremendous responsibility of guru. So little did he know that not wanting to be a spiritual teacher absolutely qualified him to be a spiritual teacher. And so when he, like you said, when he agreed to he's like, I'll do this. I'll make myself available to people. Well, we'll see. We'll see about this. I'm not so sure. I'm skeptical is kind of how my interpretation of it is. And we'll see who shows up. And so he started the International Centers of Divine Awakening, also known as ICODA, in 2004. And then the first event was October 2nd of that year. And I was at that October 2nd, 2004. So here comes this person, me, as like, hey, yeah, you're definitely a spiritual teacher, and you're my spiritual teacher. Like, this is definitely right, and this is definitely for me. And I'm here to, I didn't know it, but I was absolutely. No, there was also a whole group. It was a successful event. I don't remember the numbers, if there was 20 people or whatever it was, but there's a whole group there, and myself and some other people from that first all day workshop. Shout out to Thea, are still with Swamiji to this day. So that was 2004. We're in December of 2023. So we have started our 20th year. This is the most exciting year yet, if you ask me. ICODA has so many incredible programs and offerings. Like, it's so fun to actually experience that I've now been with Guruji for starting on my 20th year. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I remember Gurudev talking about it, about that first moment, that actually for him to have actually people show up was already a big surprise and somewhat of a confirmation. Okay, this seems to be real. And then also when he sat down, he hadn't prepared anything, like a guru doesn't prepare things. He just sits down, he starts to talk, and then when he himself heard what came out of his mouth, that was enough confirmation that, okay, this is real. This is definitely happening. I'm a spiritual teacher. And then it still took some time before then, after a couple of years, the calling came then to also be a guru and to also have disciples. Is there something you can say about that, because you were also the first disciple?
Yeah, it's a wild experience. And I forget this. I forget this all the time. I forget, like everybody does. So it's nothing to be. I don't criticize myself at all. But we all forget that our experience, our what we know, what we see, what's clear to us, that's not somebody else's experience. One of Swamiji's teachings, it's such a powerful teaching. It's like a Zen koan that you can go into again and again and again, is everything that has ever happened has happened only to you. I mean, that is such a profound, simple teaching that you can literally go into again and again and again and again, and it has riches. So, but we forget that our experience is not someone else's. So I forget that other people don't have my experience, and in there's a lot of ways that my particular path has been unique, just like everybody else. It's one of my favorite quotes. I actually don't know the source of it, but I love the quote, "You are unique, just like everybody else." And so in 2004, there's satsang with Swami Premodaya, which basically means gathering in truth. There's these all-day workshops. And satsang's an age-old tradition, and our beloved Guruji follows the question and answer. So it's a question with the master. So you can, and at this time, it's questions with spiritual teacher Swami Premodaya. So you could bring your questions, and there's just this beautiful environment of truth just being supported. And there's this community and sangha being created that is also just driving people, opening. And Swamiji is absolutely, each time it's like an empty chair. It's, you go, and as soon as he walks in and sit down, the transmission is powerful. And then there's no, like, it's like an empty chair, and it's just a response. And this response function is responding, and people are bringing important, meaningful spiritual questions, life questions. Is God real? All of these spiritual questions that everybody has. Everybody wants to know the answer to these questions.
With the empty chair, maybe for people who are not familiar with the phrase empty chair, you mean that the presence of the guru, it's only the guru, there's no person?
Exactly. Yes, it's a good clarifier, because you would go to these events, and they're, it's like, satsang with Swami Premodaya. It's like gathering in truth. You're not really, and you could just feel the presence of something more bigger, divine, the power. And you could experience when Swami Premodaya would come in and sit down. It just, there is like there's no person there, and there was just this function of response. And that's what's going on at these events. And it's just, I showed up as a disciple. That's what Swami Premodaya has confirmed, but that's also what my heart knew. I didn't know that. I didn't know what that meant. I was already like spiritual teacher. That's far out. But I showed up, and I knew that this was my guru. And I just didn't have that language. But here at these events and all this happening, and Swami Premodaya is absolutely making himself available to people spiritually. He's doing public events, he's doing workshops, he even did and does one-to-one sessions. It's like everything he knows in every way. And he had a long history of being able to set up programs. So he set up spiritual programs. But really these events were so rich, and people were getting so much, and they just wanted more and more. And Swamiji, and I had a one-to-one session with him, and the session had ended, and we were done. And so he said, I just want to bring something up to you. I want to, I don't think he said, I want to get your opinion, but it was along those lines. I want to get your take on it, see what you think about it, something along those lines. And this is one of the most powerful moments of my entire life, and certainly my spiritual path. And he looked at me, and he said, I'm getting clear indication, clear message. The universe is telling me that I have to formally take on disciples. And I want to see what you think about that. And I looked at him, and my heart was blasted open from being, with him in this session. And I looked at him, and without hesitation, I said, I feel like you're my Sat Guru. Sat means, root or true, your true guru. I feel like you're my Sat Guru, but you're not willing to be. And I immediately felt like, what did I just say? Oh my God. So I immediately apologized. So I was like, I'm sorry. And he's like, I'll never forget. He said, no, it's good for me to hear. And very soon after that, he took formally initiated disciples. So formal discipleship began in 2006. And I'll just add one more story because I wasn't there for this, but he shared this story with me personally and publicly. Prior to that conversation I had with him, he was close with another spiritual seeker. They were friends. And he, Matty D, he told Matty D, he was talking to him and he said, the universe is basically telling me, indicating to me to take formally initiated disciples. And Matty D just looked at him and said one word and only one word. He just went, kinky. No judgment, no like, no, just like, wow, that's kooky, man. like, all right. And so the first initiation was January 30th, 2006. So from October, so Swami Premodaya was a very short spiritual teacher, even though you could say he's a spiritual teacher, and that's what he is. But he he basically says, I love it when he explains it. He basically says, I was tricked. I was tricked into being a spiritual teacher, and there was a setup so that I could become a guru. Because if he had started at like make yourself a guru, he just would have been no way, not a chance. So it was like, yeah, make yourself a spiritual teacher. And then there was all the proof and the evidence and the confirmation along the way through people. And then it was make yourself, or then, it was take on formally initiated disciples. And he does tell a story where he says, but why? Why? The spiritual teachers is fine. It's enough. Why? And he said he got a clear message from God that was because some people need that. Well, I was the some people, you were the some people. And the wild thing about gurus and disciples that people really, really misunderstand about gurus and disciples is that the disciple creates the guru. It wasn't the guru. It wasn't Swami Premodaya. He wasn't like, I think I'll become a guru now. It was literally the people who were arranged at his doorstep and then who literally, I'm one of them. I literally said, I demanded discipleship. Can you imagine going to your spiritual teacher and saying, well, you're not willing to be my guru? Does that sound like somebody who's looking for disciples? What a ridiculous idea. No guru actually looks for disciples. It's a calling of the heart that the spiritual seeker responds to with a knowing they can't possibly explain, but they can actually explain the knowing of it. Like, I know that this call is exactly what's right for me. And it's funny how the world has no problem using the word guru for like tech guru, business guru, shoe guru, clothing guru. But when it comes to spiritual teacher, whoa. It's like,
Yeah.
as if somebody can't be an expert and an authority in the divine. So that heart call, that arrangement was entirely set up. So when I say Swami Premodaya is my guru, I mean everything I just said.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's clear, it's very significant, the difference between spiritual teacher and guru. A spiritual teacher has students, and it's fine, it's great, but it's a more casual relationship, you might say. But like guru disciple, like wow, us as disciples, we know it's huge. Also, the guru is when you talked about the empty chair, I realized like yes, the guru is it a fire guru, bringer of light, or the one who dispels the darkness. But it's a fire. It's a literal fire, burning. Fire brings light. Fire burns stuff away. Fire is can be felt as dangerous. Fire burns the ego. um Fire, it's a serious thing, and it's a serious engagement. And I start to understand a bit more why somebody would be like, guru, I don't really if it would be an actual choice, that's wow. Anyone who chooses to be Guru. It's yeah, it's very wild.
According to our guru, you don't choose to be a guru.
No.
All real gurus are commanded or
Mm,
appointed, or they're recognized.
mm,
They're appointed by God. They're commanded by God.
mm,
But I the it's also very it's ancient that the term fire has always been to indicate purification,
mm, mm,
purification of intent, purification of attitude, soul, everything. So that fire is the fire of the guru is a purifying fire, and
mm,
it's a serious, intense undertaking. And the demand is that you live as yourself, you think for yourself, you be yourself, and
mm,
you're responsible for you. And the difference between spiritual teacher and guru is that guru is a connection. It's a very serious heart to heart, or some might say soul to soul connection. The problem is language, because that's all duality conversation.
mm,
It's
mm,
like, there is no separation, and that's ultimately what you come to if you continue on the path. And that the guru is to stand there as that fire, as a reflection, but the connection is very, very real. The discipleship becomes an actual bonding, an actual link. That's a better word. It's an actual link, from heart to heart. And the guru, basically takes responsibility for your karma, your spiritual path, your soul's journey. And so that's a very, very serious responsibility. So it's not entered into lightly. So no ego would actually take that on if they saw the actuality, the reality of it.
mm.
So the go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, different spiritual teacher, guru. Spiritual teacher talks about spiritual stuff, talks about God, and a guru is God. God is real. Brings the. It's also a Premodaya-ism. Brings the whole enchilada. It's that that's what the guru brings, and I think a spiritual teacher. It's all fine. There's no issue with spiritual teachers, but there is a very big, and it is important to talk about it because Premodaya went from spiritual teacher to guru. There is a big difference. A guru is the doorway to the divine. So,
Yeah, it's a good important point. Typically, a spiritual teacher might represent a teaching,
mm,
or represent, um, actually, let's say it differently. Present, like they present understanding, present wisdom. It's more, not to take away. We cherish and respect all spiritual teachers. We certainly respect, admire all spiritual seekers. Um, Even non-spiritual seekers, we love and appreciate everyone, but certainly we have such an appreciation for spirituality, period. So we're in no way taking anything from, we're simply saying that it's two different methods. A spiritual teacher tends to present understanding, or present ideas, where the guru lives it, is it, transmits it. It's the very embodiment of it. So just by being in the presence of a true guru, you feel different, you feel rearranged. I'll never forget meeting Amma for the first time. Swami Premodaya, one of the first things he ever did when I was in the practitioner training program, um, this must have been 2005, 2006, is he would send me to other gurus to make sure that I had a spiritual education. So that's another one of the incredible things about Swami Premodaya. He's so practical, and I really enjoy that, the practical guru, but it's practical guru for very specific reasons, because the truth is always simple, is one of his teachings. Um, and he's the practical guru because of how effective he is, and he will utilize anything that will support your spiritual path. And in my case, I was sent to other teachers to get a other gurus to get spiritual education. I'll never forget one of the uh, incredible healers in my life um, had said to me how impressed she was with Swami Premodaya because of how much he sends his people to other teachers and how uncommon that is. And that's just been the case. He absolutely is for whatever works. That's what makes him the practical guru. And what works for you is not what works for someone else. So he's always worked individually.
Mm.
The guru disciple relationship is always a one-to-one relationship. It doesn't matter how many disciples there are, it's always between you and the guru. So this is all from Premodaya and why he's so practical.
Yeah, and there are so many examples. Like all of us disciples have many examples, but I would love to share two. One, it just came to me when you were talking. One is I was in the center when there was a physical center, and I was cooking something, and I left a dirty spoon on the counter. And Pramadaya saw it, and he just he just said one phrase. I It had something to do with the spoon, like never leave a dirty spoon just there, put it on something, or just take a napkin or something. It may sound like nothing, but that one thing y- influenced me up until now. Like I I it gave me more awareness about just very simple day-to-day tasks, especially in the kitchen. I will be very it and it makes life so much easier, but it's not only about my practical life. It cleans out also my mental life. I don't leave dirty stuff around in my head either. I make sure everything is clean in the right place. Of course, there's always a progress to be made, but I noticed how untidy I used to be with, or unaware I was with many things. That's one thing where the practicality just had such a huge effect on my day-to-day life, but also it's not only day-to-day practical. It starts with the day-to-day, but it has such a huge impact on everything, like literally on everything. And one other thing, and probably in the future we will have other podcasts about parenting. I'm a parent. I have two wonderful sons. Um, um, they're both also disciples of Swami Premodaya. When our second one was very different from the first one, which is very common.
So hold your thought because
Yes.
I want you to tell that, but I also have to say they're disciples of Swami Premodaya because they asked for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
Yeah.
something, because some people, when they hear, oh, disciples of Swami Premodaya, it was never brought up. It
No.
was, I know this from relating with you so much and from
Yeah.
knowing you for so many years because I'm so floored by those two boys because they separately, not together, separately
Yeah.
asked for, identified, said Swami Premanaya is my guru and asked for
Yeah.
discipleship. I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that blows me away that heart call can happen for a child. And we've seen it happen many times. And, in India, this isn't a big surprise, but in Western culture, in America and Europe, it's shocking. It's like, oh my goodness, wow. And you just can't believe it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
And
interrupted.
and we literally we didn't do anything. Just Shamari and I were disciples, and yeah, we live our discipleship, and we never even goaded them into any direction. They just all of a sudden we were shocked ourselves. It was like, okay, fine. Um, it is all fine. But then the second, no, it's not fine. It's great. It's wonderful. It's
Well,
awesome.
it's also it's theirs. Like
It's theirs.
part of the
Yeah.
guru disciple relationship is, you have to recognize it and you ask for it, and then there's also another part that everybody forgets. You also have to receive it.
Mm,
It's a before that connection with the guru is made, it's recognized, requested, and responded to. So the things that set all that up so that it can be a divine connection is out of this world. But
Yeah, and it's also our culture, our society, our conditioning says like, children don't have a mind of their own, they can't decide, and everything they do is influenced, and it's impossible. But no, as a parent, that's also one of the things I live by. Whatever age a child is a again a unique person with its own unique needs, wants, and knowings also. So even a 3-year-old asking for discipleship, it's to be taken seriously. There's nothing strange about it. As much the culture wants us to believe that these things are not possible, well, the culture wants us to believe discipleship is a hoax.
well,
So
this is why it'll be good to do a conscious parenting or a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
parenting
yeah, yeah.
episode, because Swamiji has identified both you and Shamari as
Mm,
incredible parents. And one of the things that makes you incredible parents that the most people don't get is you don't actually see your children as objects that you own. You actually are able to clearly see and identify that they are their own being, and your job is to support that rather than to condition it into what you want.
yeah.
And so far, that incredibly open, mindful, aware parenting has included them being very much there, because they're very different
Hmm.
and very much themselves. They're two of the most incredible boys that children I've ever met. They're very, very strong in their uniqueness and their development as individuals, and it's been beautiful to watch them unfold. And it happens that they both recognized, like, to live as an actual spiritual family, as a sangha within a family. Again, it's not that unusual throughout the history of time if you look at other places, but it's certainly wildly unique in our time, and it's
Hmm.
so fun to experience. So you were
Yeah.
saying about the two boys, and
Yeah, well, that is actually one thing Pramadaya was tremendously helpful with, because first child, okay, he is like this, and then a second child comes. All of a sudden, this child is completely different. I thought I knew everything about children, having a first one, but then the second one, I did not understand a thing. And the only thing Premadaya said, because I thought at a certain moment that there was something seriously wrong with the second one, just because he was so different, and he did some things as a very small child I could not understand, and I saw as problematic. And Premadaya just calmly said, like, look, there's nothing wrong. You just have two children. They're both from a different planet. There's nothing wrong with the second one, nothing at all. And just this one practical advice changed everything for me. It made me shed. Well, it I didn't do anything. Everything dropped. All the nonsense ideas I had of like, should I go to see a child psychiatrist with this one? It all just simply dropped away. And you know what? They are indeed from two different planets, and two wonderful different planets, but two different planets, and there's nothing wrong. So that is another amazing example how Premadaya, through his practicality, totally changed my life for the better. Because if he would not have said that, and I would have gone along with what I thought was the way to go, things would have been different, and not better.
yeah, and that's also part of what we're talking about, is the difference between a spiritual teacher and a
Yeah.
difference between a guru. And to go back to what I was saying about Amma, when he had sent me to Amma, that was the first time, like, the transmission of Amma was like a power plant. It just was like, it's just so powerful, and it just like rearranged. And that's what the different, a spiritual teacher saying, hey, don't, about that spoon on the counter, there might be some wisdom, there might be something transmitted, but a guru, it's a whole different function. It's just one word, one phrase, one, because there's such a divine connection. It just has the way of turning a key that is inexplicable. And he's the practical guru in the sense he was also the practical spiritual teacher, the effectiveness. But some people would show up, saying, "I want God," but their life would be in chaos and had no idea how they were gonna pay the rent or get from the next meal. And his response would be, "Well, you need to get a job." Or some people would be, his the workings from Swami Premodaya as the practical guru. He is not an ivory tower guru. His life has given him the experience to meet anybody wherever they are, whether it's suffering or in turmoil or in chaos or in bliss or in joy. He just meets anyone wherever they are. And part of the practicality is how often he would, people would really show up with I want enlightenment, and he would say, you need friends, or yeah, I want more.
Clean up your room. Clean up
Right,
your room.
yeah,
Get a job. Yeah.
more awareness. And it's like he just would say, like you already gave the example. And Swami Premodaya has always said that the spiritual path always includes more awareness. So it has this like Mr. Miyagi karate kid effect of you're thinking, I got to learn karate, and he's saying, well, why don't you sand the floor? And then you sand the floor, and now you have more awareness, or now you're living entirely differently. I mean, I've seen something as simple as you know no longer be clumsy. You everywhere you go is a certain kind of, or accident prone. So make all of your focus, your spiritual life is about stopping being accident prone and just living that awareness. It's like that's how the spiritual path starts. It's like what's often been referred to as getting to normal. You have to get to normal in these aspects of life so that you can devote your life to something more, something bigger, something further, higher consciousness. It's basically impossible to grow spiritually, higher consciousness, when there's an environment of chaos, because that's your distraction. You are what you focus on, Swami Premodaya says. So if you're constantly focused on these areas of life that need to be fixed, well, you're not available for the spiritual path. So that's part of his practicality. um I also, go ahead. I could see you have something to
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to say, because I have a sense that you want to go to Bhakti, and that's good. That's good.
Almost.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I also wanted to add something about
Please.
the practicality.
Yes, please
Um,
do.
it is something we, or I, never really think about as being an aspect of the practicality, but ICODA having so much online presence and the possibility to log into satsang online, log into all the events, to workshops, to meet sangha online. Everything is online, like and it started well before COVID, well before everyone was on Zoom. Not that it matters, but still, we have been online for a very long time. I'm in Belgium. I coda Brussels. I spent quite some time also with the guru in Los Angeles. And of course, it's amazing to be in the same room, to be able to touch people, to breathe the same air. Absolutely. But at the same time, having a virtual ashram or being present virtually, it's the same. The all the meditations Premadaya did online. It happens sometimes during satsang. Meditation starts. It's as powerful as being in the room, and that is also an amazing example of like how real the guru is, even just through a computer, through a laptop. The transmission is real, it's palpable, it's effective. It's uh, like it's it's quite mind-blowing, actually.
Well, it's such a good point. I'm so glad you brought it up. Thank
Mm,
you. Because the guru is not a person that's limited to a place and a time. And it's truly a beyond time and space. It's a beyond person to person relationship. It's a function of the divine itself that absolutely transmits, communicates, and it is not related at all to time and space. It's been one of the tremendous gifts of the International Centers of Divine Awakening. It's been one of the tremendous gifts of ICODA. Well, they're the same thing. It's been one of the tremendous gifts of the International Centers of Divine Awakening is the online aspect, and seeing that distance doesn't matter. It almost fix it, because you, in your mind, you don't develop this idea that it's only this place when I'm with this person at this time. So while being in person is a absolute joy and privilege, and it's certainly the potency of being in person is very rich, having the situation created that out of your control. And ICODA has had the online presence for so long, but Swami Premodaya doesn't do uh he doesn't just talk at you. Let's say it positively. He does do satsang in question and answer. So you get the guru one to one on, yes, it's on a device, but you get the guru right now in person, live, and you can ask your question and get your response. And so the transmission of that is so clear. It's so clearly not related to time and space. And that's been a tremendous gift.
mm.
I was gonna. You already stated it, but I actually was on my list because I like to make a little bit of notes to ask you what it's like, what the virtual element is like. But because you can testify to it more than anyone, because you're quote unquote far away.
Yeah, I obviously I'm always looking forward, if possible, to be in the same room and to be around the sangha and to be around the guru or to be with the guru. Um, but at
Sure. I
this,
mean, it's nice to be able to give a spiritual high five in person.
yeah, and then again at the same time, yeah, like I mentioned, the the transmission does not diminish me being, what is it, 2,000 miles? No,
No,
probably
way more.
way more.
Yeah. It's
uh,
3,000 miles to the East Coast,
okay,
and
okay,
then
so
and then
so yeah,
6,000 miles, something like
many thousands of miles away.
that.
um it's and it is actually already from the beginning, because my first years of discipleship, I only visited for retreats, and all the other um, gatherings, spiritual discourses, or satsangs were online in my time zone. But there are also advantages to it, like for instance, having to get up as it used to be at 4 in the morning. Sometimes it just um, it also to added. I
Yeah, that's the situational
Yeah,
spiritual fire of purification, because
yeah,
you're demonstrating to yourself,
mm,
because that's what matters, but you're demonstrating to yourself, hey, my spiritual life is what matters. I don't
yeah,
care if I'm tired, I don't care if it's 4 in the morning. And those of us who are local in a local time zone that have a very convenient time, we haven't had the
mm,
blessing of that purification. I mean, this is why there are ashrams. This is why there is spiritual practice, which is wake up at 4, you do your meditations or you do your yoga, and that you practice. It's like everything's regimented, and it's regimented to focus on the spiritual, and to have an actual situation where you're waking up at 4 in the morning, you're demonstrating to yourself, hey, my spiritual life really matters and I take my practice seriously. So that's one of the benefits of the time frame. But I just can't believe what we've been able to offer online. It just blows me away. We've done full online retreats. We've all of the offerings at ICOTA are online. We hope to do we have plans to do in-person events in 2024, but even when we do in-person events, we still have the online element. And the thing that I like about our online element is it's still interactive. It's not just something you tune into and watch. You still participate fully. You're just online, and that's been the case since the very beginning. And we've been one of the very few people who have always set it up that way. We've created entire broadcasting platform so that it's completely interactive, regardless if you're in the room or not.
Yeah, and it's also just wonderful to have this worldwide online community. I remember one time we had during one satsang there was attendance from India, from Senegal, from Italy, from Belgium, U.S., and maybe also Mexico in one during one event. That was quite amazing. It-
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's lovely. I do want to talk a little more about, just like you said, we want to talk about what is bhakti. It's the
Mm.
Bhakti Talk podcast. I mean, sure, we should tell the ridiculous story of how we came up with Bhakti Talk podcast. Um, as an assistant prop master, I've worked on a number of movies and television shows. And in my last years, I worked on the show Physical, the 1980s television show on Apple TV. And I did not know how ingrained that song is in my mind. And so I was really thinking about a podcast. I was thinking about you, and I was sitting down to do my meditation. And I kept, even though that song is clearly in my mind, I kept thinking, I want to hear your bhakti talk. I want to hear your bhakti talk. Let me hear your bhakti talk. And I was like, what? Why? Like, where is it? And it's like, I had to go and listen. I actually, before I did meditation, I came out to from my meditation room to my computer, and I put in Physical, and then I heard that whole section. Let me hear your body. So let me hear your bhakti talk. I want to hear your bhakti talk. And let's get spiritual. So that's where Bhakti Talk podcast came from. So we have to talk about bhakti. Bhakti is a type. It is a path. And before we get into that path, I wondered, would you like to read from? Let's see. We'll just start. If you'll just start reading it, I sent you a PDF. This is a handout from Swami Premodaya, because many people have asked. One of the first questions that pretty much everybody asks is, well, what was your spiritual practice? What was your path? How did you gain insight? Or somebody might say, what gave you enlightenment, or which he's never claimed to be enlightened. And it's always very funny. First of all, you have to define enlightenment. People have all kinds of ideas around all that kind of stuff. But certainly people ask, you could say, well, what qualifies you as a guru? What's your practice? How did you get insight? How did you get there is kind of the question. So Swami Premodaya wrote this beautiful article and gave it to us at an event, and it is titled "How I Got from There to Here." Love did it, which means Guru's grace, by Bodhisattva Sri Swami Premodaya. So will you read from this, and we'll see
Yeah,
if we read the whole thing, or if we
sure,
at least go through part of it.
sure. I loved my guru. That's it. That's the whole story. But I really loved my Guru all the way. From the first moment, I always knew and always know and will always know who my master is. It's such an important statement, so pivotal, that I would like to say it to you again. I know who my master is. Because I recognized and understood that knowing for sure who one's master is constitutes the biggest thing that can ever happen to a human being. My love and trust and faith and regard for him were appropriately immense, immeasurable, unwavering, and beyond questioning. And what do you do when you're wildly in love? You think about the one you love all the time. Because I was so in love with my guru, I thought about him all the time. This became always focused on my beloved guru, always aware of the guru, always practicing guru focus, simply a lover, never tiring of contemplating his beloved. Without my seeking it or intending it, this established permanently, eternally, the doubt free condition I enjoy and would like you to enjoy with all its benefits and blessings. Buddhism refers to taking refuge, but that sounds a bit childish to me, too much like running behind your mother's skirts. I don't experience it as refuge, as sanctuary. I experience it as the only real solid ground possible for us humans. I'm not using my master to avoid anything, and I'm not using my discipleship to dodge life's blows. I'm standing on it as the bedrock it is, ready to accept all that life brings, which we all have to do anyway, as life will bring it, whether we accept it or not. So, what happened to me next in this sequence? Absolute obedience to my beloved master became gloriously established in me. This is the first true taste of freedom, when you are no longer the slave of your own ego, your own willfulness, your own limited mind. As a result, the all the time guru consciousness firmed up even more and became constant, permanent, ever present, moment to moment, involuntary guru consciousness. In other words, there's never a single second where it's not going on. In every moment, I'm aware of my beloved master. It's just impossible for it to be any other way for me. It's not my doing, of course. Obviously, love did it. Love is doing it. At some point, things transformed, and my guru consciousness turned into permanent, involuntary, ceaseless God consciousness. Guru consciousness just expanded to include God consciousness. This occurs through the joining of one, the disciple's guru consciousness, with two, Guru's grace. Then involuntary, ceaseless God consciousness blossomed into its higher form. In Christianity, it's referred to as involuntary, ceaseless inner prayer. It's that simple. No methods were employed. For the loving disciple, the trusting disciple, the truly devoted disciple, the maximally devoted disciple, no other method is needed. No other method even comes close to the effectiveness of absolute love for the Guru, which is complete devotion to the Guru. For the devoted disciple, the Master is the path, the Guru is the gate. Simply falling totally into one's discipleship is the super method offered by God to all seekers: Guru Yoga and Karma Yoga. Maximum Guru love engenders complete trust, absolute faith, full devotion, true surrender, and unpretentious obedience. Every single one of the virtues of discipleship, the entire package. It's a season pass. You only pay once, but you get it all. Through love, all of the other five possibilities became actualized, maximized, optimized. It's valuable and interesting to note that any of these taken to their end point will have the same effect. Love is merely one of the six doors. It happened to be the one that worked for me. Recommendation: find the one that works for you. That's most intrinsically natural for you, most truly already operating in you. And if you can't use one of these six, that is, if for whatever reason you can't or don't become total in it, there's no problem. It simply means that you're in the vast majority. And for the majority, adjunct methods will be required in the meantime and must be accepted. There's no other way. It's vital, critical to understand this. So, practice is essential. My practice was the involuntary and effortless higher form, the practice of love for my master. However, this would never have been possible and would never have happened if I hadn't first effortfully and diligently practiced the meditation method that my guru gave me. It was so powerful and effective that it worked almost instantaneously. And after a few weeks of vigilant and dedicated practice, I was catapulted into many deep inner and outer realms, which typically can take decades of practice to reach. Again, the reason it worked so quickly in my case was that I already loved my guru with all my heart and soul. Therefore, it was all due to love of my master. I did absolutely nothing other than trustingly and unquestioningly and happily obey. The great secret at the heart of the guru disciple relationship is purely this: to whatever degree you love your master, to that exact degree your master's love, divine love, can reach you. Your love, your trust, your devotion makes you receptive, able to receive the Guru's grace more fully. Guru's grace flows to you in exact proportion to your ability to receive it. This is also the law of God's love. It's available to you in the precise proportion to which you are able to love. Even the Beatles said it. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Remember, the Beatles had a guru too, and wrote this lyric shortly after spending significant time with him in his ashram in India. Life is the opportunity for discipleship. In turn, discipleship is the opportunity for real life, the only true life, the only life worth living, the only life that fulfills. In the end, for the devotee, when I look back, it's easy to see how from beginning to end it was all wrought by Guru's grace. All of it. The devotee is not prey to the ego deception that plagued the disciple. and which lead him or her to subtly believe that they did it. It can be anything. The disciple is in the position of still floundering in ignorance, struggling. The devotee has recognized, acknowledged, and accepted their ignorance, and therein transcended it. Don't misunderstand. The devotee remains ignorant, but now has access to the divine wisdom which arrives when ignorance is transcended. One remains ignorant, but one is no longer ignorant of God, of the nature of the mystery itself. One has found the door and entered the temple. And once inside, abiding there becomes possible, becomes easy. One is happy and content to never leave. One simply becomes a temple dweller. In the end, the method becomes irrelevant. It was just a door, just a way in. The door is only significant as an entry point. Once inside, the door has no further relevance. All the wonders inside the temple are available to you. But obviously, before the door is actually located and fully utilized, how to get in is all important. The door is the only thing that matters. Discipleship is discovering the temple. Deeper discipleship is finding the door. The deepest discipleship and the final, fully ripened fruits of practice, sadhana, is entering through that door, crossing the threshold. Devoteeship is being inside the temple. Once inside, you will never want to leave. Leaving becomes impossible simply because it's undesirable. When you've come home at last, you lose all craving to wander. It's not that you're a prisoner and can't leave. It's just that you know there's no better place you can be. The devotee is turtle-like. He or she never leaves home, wherever they may go.
Osho.
Osho.
So
Yeah. What
that's
more?
Swami Premodaya talking
Yeah.
about Osho.
Yeah.
So who is Swami Premodaya? He is a bhakta. He is
Mm,
a devotee of Osho.
mm. Yeah, I wanted to say what else to add about bhakti. This is clearly this is a devotee speaking. This is our guru's love, our guru's devotion for his beloved guru. Also, actually, once again, also our beloved guru Osho. Um,
Who it's just as is beautifully represented here. Without Osho's grace, none of this is possible.
mhm,
Without Osho's grace, there is no Swami Premodaya.
mm,
By the way, Swami Premodaya is uh, his Osho sannyas name, and it means the rise of love.
mm,
So without this place, this rise of love, there's no Swami Premodaya. Without Swami Premodaya, there's no International Centers of Divine Awakening. Without Swami Premodaya, there is no discipleship for myself. Without discipleship with Swami Premodaya, I would never have discipleship with Osho. Without Osho, I never met Swami.
mm,
So it's 100%. You can, he says, all is Guru's grace,
mm,
Osho. And the same can be said for me. All is my Guru's grace, Swami Premodaya. But all of that comes from Osho. All of this, anything at Ikoda, any effect that Swami Premodaya has ever had on anyone's life has all come from Osho. So
mm.
Osho,
Osho.
right there, right?
Yeah, and it's maybe good to also add when you talk about bhakti, the bhakti path, there's also the love path, there's also the wisdom path. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we should say outright that bhakti and just translate that is basically love or devotion. It is the devotional path. And part of the practicality of Swami Premoday's guruship is exactly what you're saying. He's so practical that he's taken all spiritual paths and they basically can be categorized in two paths. And then please continue to share what those are.
those are the bhakti path, the love path, and the wisdom path, and they seep into each other. But Prabhupada has stressed, like, the love path, you'll end up in the wisdom path. Um, all these paths, when they finally reach the ocean, it's the same. They also, it, bhakti is so all encompassing. You could also say wisdom is also all encompassing, but you and I are lovers of bhakti.
Yeah,
Um,
we enjoy the devotional path, the
yes.
path of devotion. Like you're saying, these paths intersect and they include, but teachers, gurus tend to teach one path. I mean, there's always aspects of either path, but quite typically they can be categorized in either the knowledge or wisdom path or either in the love and devotion path. And our guru teaches both, and they intersect, and it's sometimes it's more knowledge, sometimes it's more people think they're heart people and they're knowledge people, and people think they're knowledge people who are heart people. And part of the practicality of Swami Premodaya's guruship is seeing and understanding what is your specific path, and he happens to teach both. And he also says that no matter what, if you continue all the way down the spiritual path, you'll always end up in bhakti. Knowledge taken all the way, wisdom at its end point ends up in the devotional path.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Also, for myself, an easy way to see it is like, wisdom. Wisdom is more focused on meditation and teaching, and bhakti is more focused on love, on singing, on dancing. And also interesting, when we were researching bhakti, what does the word actually mean? One of the meanings is also sharing, and that is also what we do with the Bhakti Talk podcast. It's like sharing our love. And when I think about bhakti, there are many, many examples of bhaktas in the world. But I always, when I think of bhakti, I think of gopis, the milkmaids dancing around Krishna, totally in love, forgetting about their, what was it, cows? I guess cows or goats. They were.
Well, I certainly can't think of bhakti without thinking of Bhakti Vedanta and Swami Prabhupada,
Yeah,
Jai Jai
yeah,
to the Krishnas, who
yeah,
literally, made life singing. Don't worry, be happy, chant and celebrate. So,
yeah.
bhakti is certainly the love path, the devotion path. It's the path of celebration. So
Mhm,
Osho is absolutely a guru of bhakti, because
mhm,
his whole teaching could be summarized in one small phrase, which is celebrate everything. Um, I have a few notes that I enjoy looking at, and I have God. There's Guru Bhakti Yoga. So it's yoga means union, bhakti means devotion. So
mhm,
it's devoting. In Hinduism that would be deity worship. But I like, God gives you a source of devotion so that you can ultimately worship the universal, which is what you are. It's the path to your very own self. Singing and dancing are expressions of the bhakti path. That's where kirtan comes from. That's where bhajans come from. Um, there's famous bhaktas that we love. Of course, our own guru. We already said Osho. We already said Prabhupada. But Ramdas, Saint Francis, Swami Satchidananda, Kabir, Hafiz. There's all these incredible demonstrations of bhakti. But one of the ones for us Westerners that I thoroughly was so moved by, because I had never thought about it this way until Swami Premodaya had pointed it out. But it was really just so humbling, and I just feel it in my very heart, uh, that Martin Luther King Jr. lived the path of bhakti. His guru was Jesus Christ, and he lived that devotional path to the very end point where even his own life didn't matter. And Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the people who Swami Premodaya reveres the most. And part of being a devotee, part of being a bhakta that Swami Premodaya is, his reverence for teachers, gurus, practitioners, spiritual seekers is so moving and so humbling that it moves you closer to love itself. He is the rise of love. His love itself, his devotion, his sincere admiration for those uh, who are pioneers for the spiritual path, who have literally changed the world, who continue to carry the light of spirituality to this day. That rise of love is that reverence is so powerful that it's transformed me over and over again. And obviously, I love Martin Luther King, but to see that he's a bhakta, he practiced the bhakti path. It just changed. It made his entire life that much richer for me, and that again, I'm forever grateful to Swami Premodaya for.
Yeah, basically any guru. What strikes me about bhakti is something I never thought about actually, but how bhakti taken to its logical endpoint, it's surrender, it's self-forgetting, it's in the case of Martin Luther King, laying down your life, literally giving away your life. It's this humbling and self-forgetting, self-negating, because that is what ultimate devotion and ultimate love also does. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the beloved, and that is also in the handout I read from Pramadaya. It's only Osho.
Yeah,
Pramadaya lives in Osho.
and it's negating in the egoic sense. It's
Mm,
it's you're talking about getting rid of that which doesn't serve you in a selfless manner, moving through life in such a selfless way that it includes the entire divine, the entire
mm,
cosmic. That God itself is the function of your life, is how you're moving rather than your limited arrogance and ego. So that ego isn't a problem uh, unless it's running the show, and for pretty much all of us it is, and that's where we start. And so until you can actually choose for yourself instead of your impulse and conditioning, that's the negating you're referring to. I just wanted to
mm.
be
Yeah,
clear
yeah,
on
yeah.
that, because
It's
it's negating what doesn't serve you to allow for what is service of the all.
it's the most positive urge to disappear, to to come out the other end, to come out in the guru, the
So
gate.
yes. So
Go
a
ahead.
couple things we do have we pulled is that bhakti is the way of devotion. The root meaning is to share. Uh, it's singing and dancing are natural expressions of joy, of life bursting forward. Bhakti says yes to life. Um, Bhakti's it's creativity. It's the highest creativity. It's song and dance. It's poem. But that's the simple form is that it's love. It's the love path. It's the devotional path. And the amazing part about bhakti is taken all the way. It's fully imbibed, taken in, celebrated all the way. All the wisdom and knowledge you need is readily available.
Mm,
Just like knowledge path, you go all the way on knowledge, you end up in devotion. You end up in the love path. I mean, part of Guruji's practical advice or is to practice bhakti, because you're going to end up there anyway. Even if you're a knowledge person, is still you're going to end up on the bhakti path. So why not practice? Um,
Yeah, and also life is other people.
One of Swamiji's essential teachings.
Yeah.
I've always loved the fact that, we don't have a dogma. We don't have a volume of teachings that's here, memorize this, and that's the way. But Swamiji does have essential understanding that serve the spiritual path. And life is other people is one of those essential teachings,
Mm.
essential understandings.
Hmm. Love rising.
Love rising. I mean, how incredible is that? How incredible is that? I actually have Swamiji made these beautiful copies of his initiation acceptance letter that had his name on it, and I have framed it in gold
Mhm.
and put it on the wall. And you just see, Premodaya Love Rising, and how incredible is the accuracy of a spiritual name for a disciple. In
Hmm.
fact, we should do a whole podcast on spiritual names, because you have a spiritual name, I have a spiritual name, and I sure would love to talk about it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But Swami Premodaya Love Rising, of course, he's a bhakta. It's in his name. I never
Yeah,
thought about it that way.
yeah.
And the beautiful part of our guru is that he does teach both paths at the same time. That's part of why he's so practical, is because he can tap into whatever's effective for whoever shows up.
Mm.
That's not all teachers. We forget that. Back to the earlier conversation, we forget that our path is ours, and it's unique, and just like everybody, we tend to take for granted whatever our situation is, and we're very lucky to have a guru who truly teaches wisdom and knowledge, and truly transmits and teaches bhakti. And you and I just happen to celebrate in. I mean, you have. We don't really talk about this, but you have studied kirtan. You play the harmonium. I've studied classical Indian music. I play the tabla.
Hmm.
You're a performance artist. I'm a painter. So for us, expression and creativity and dance and laughter, that has been the great joy of our spiritual practice.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We tend to forget this. Other people are much more cerebral or mind oriented, and that's their practice. You and I are just like, we want to sit around and have a laugh, and
True.
and celebrate the devotional aspects, the worshipful aspects. I love worship. Worship to this day, thinking all the way back, any ceremonial and worshipful practice, that's the bhakti path. That's
Yeah,
the worship, the natural worshipful quality of my personality. It turns out, with understanding through Guru's grace and through Guru's wisdom and wit, and in fact, he's the one that pointed out that I was naturally worshipful. It took me so long to get that. I'm still getting it. That's the power of a guru. Is there something they've planted, 20 years ago, is still unfolding for the rest of your life. Uh,
mm.
it continues to give riches for the rest of your life. That's the power of a guru, and that worship, that worshipfulness, that allure for me, that draw to worship is bhakti.
Mm.
It's why I love service so much. That's why I love selfless service. That's why it's seva, as it's referred to, is because it's work as worship. It's the bhakti path in action, serving somebody else, serving
Yeah,
my guru, serving someone's spiritual path is bhakti in action. There's guru bhakti yoga, there's seva. All of these are terms for practicing what we're talking about. So this is the bhakti path.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that clarification about seva. Indeed, indeed, it is also a way to disappear in the most positive sense, and Yeah, but that's also a good theme to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about.
I would, that would be my, I could talk about that again and again, and I
Yeah.
would love, I'm more than happy. Service has been, devotion has been Swami Premodaya, as we just read, as he just explained, that loving his guru, but service has been my path.
Mm,
It's been the primary sadhana, the primary practice of my spiritual path has been
mm.
service. So I could talk about service endlessly. I love it. It's work as worship. And one of the taglines that Swami Premodaya came up with for ICODA that I love, it's very simple. It's your path, our mission. So that's part of the beauty of Guruji, and part of the having the practical guru, and part of him not having a dogmatic teaching is it really is individual. He's often said, I don't speak to groups, I speak to individuals in
Mm,
groups. That's another one of the amazing, inexplicable, it can't be understood truly. It can be understood as it's described, but it can't be understood as in the function of it, that he always is speaking to individuals in groups. In other words, whoever's there, however many people, they're hearing whatever they're hearing, and that is what serves their path wherever they're at that time. And it's just part of the beautiful witnessing the function of a
mm.
guru. It's also why we created this podcast, as another place to celebrate the sacred, to honor the
Yeah.
divine, and to support spiritual seekers, and let you know that you're not alone, but we're right there with you and cheering you on. We absolutely.
And that it is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's many aspects of the spiritual path that are arduous and difficult and oftentimes
Yeah.
painful, and you feel like, man, I don't think I can keep going. And then you keep going. Swamiji has often said that the spiritual path is all about persistence, and when you
Mm,
keep persisting, it's that's why we are, boy, are we your fan. We just admire and honor all spiritual paths and all spiritual seekers.
mm.
So, and we just happen to love
Absolutely.
bhakti. So if
Yeah.
you're a bhakti fan, say hello. I think that that's a good place to end for today. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you as I do. I've really loved I really loved not loved love this platform of being able to actually see your face and laugh with you rather than talk on the phone. I so very much miss you.
Mm,
There is to be truly valuable about being together, and dining together, being together, breathing together. But I also know that you're my beloved guru brother, and I am
yes.
with you, and you are with me always. I'm
Mm,
grateful to speak to you, to do this podcast together. I'm very moved that we get to celebrate in our beloved guru,
mm,
and in our own individual bhakti paths.
mm.
I do want to actually, will you read the basically, can you end this for us?
Okay. 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 So this is the end. The Bhakti Talk podcast is presented by International Centers of Divine Awakening, or ICODA. Visit the ICODA website at icoda.org for our podcast homepage, and watch on YouTube, listen on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Bhakti Talk Podcast. New episodes come out twice a month, so be sure to give us a follow to be notified of new content. And speaking of new episodes,
We have a very exciting next episode that will come out in the beginning of January with a very special guest, our beloved Shomari Dev. Shamari is a advanced disciple of Swami Premodaya. She's the administrator of ICOTA Brussels, a longtime yoga teacher and spiritual practitioner, and she will be co-facilitating ICOTA's January 28th Spiritual Growth Seminar, Locate Your Exhaustion. I am so excited to be with both my beloved guru brother and my beloved guru sister. I can't wait for that episode, so make sure you tune in.
To see a full calendar of upcoming events, including Satsang with Swami Premodaya, spiritual growth seminars with advanced Ikoda practitioners, as well as transformational programs, courses, free guided meditations, and an incredible wealth of spiritual wisdom teachings, visit i-coda.org.
And thank you to the International Centers of Divine Awakening, ICODA, for hosting this podcast. And thank you to you, whoever's listening out there. We appreciate you very much. And we give gratitude to our beloved Sangha and to all spiritual practitioners, and an absolutely ecstatic thank you to our beloved Guru, Swami Premodaya. Jai Jai, Swami Premodaya. Your grace, wisdom, ways, practices continue to unfold understanding and spiritual growth. You are the practical guru. Jai Jai,
Jai Jai
Swami
Swami
Premodaya.
Premodaya.
Oh, brother, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.